Yo, good morning, chat. How is everyone doing on Sunday? I hope you all had a good weekend. Thank you again for joining me today. If you're new to the stream, hi, I'm Ben. Most of you guys know me online as Nahamsec. And every Sunday, we stream on Twitch and we bring on either a guest and we interview them about hacking or we do some live hacking. So tonight or today, we're going to do both. For some of you guys, it might be tonight, it might be evening. But today, we're going to do both. So for a little bit, the first half, I have TJ Noel here joining me. We'll get to know him a little bit. And then later, what we're going to do is we're going to continue on doing what we were doing last week with our recon stuff, continue to build on that, and hopefully finish off what we started last week. But before I bring on our guest, let me know, how do I sound? Do I sound okay? Can you hear me okay? And let me know if you're excited about our guest. So our next guest, I think a lot of you guys remember him from being at OffSec. He's like an amazing pen tester. He was a community manager for them, and he's has done a lot of stuff for the community. I was just on Twitter the other day, and I saw a lot of people giving him shout outs about their journey to getting their OSCP and that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to get to know him. I'm excited to get to meet him a little bit and kind of hear about his story and how he's gone to the point that he's gone today. All right, chat. Are you guys ready? TJ no OSCP list. Okay, we're gonna ask him about that. I know someone in the chat is saying that. My room tour, we'll do it later. This is not about a room tour right now. But cool. All right, let's welcome TJ Noel to the stream and get to know him a little bit. Hey man, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for letting me be on here today.
Thanks for taking the time, man. I know Sundays are a hard one to get people to commit to doing these things. I know everyone wants to spend time with their family and do their own thing. So I really appreciate you making the time to be here and kind of tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So for some of you guys that don't know me, my name's TJ Null. I originally, was a former community manager at Fed Security, but my day-to-day stuff now is I'm just a pen tester. So I like to break into things. I still contribute to the Kali Linux project. And outside of that, I teach at a local community college about actually ethical hacking and breaking into stuff from time to time. So
Nice. I did not know about the teaching. That's really awesome, man.
yeah, I've been doing it for 7 years now. But it's like been a passion of mine just to try to give back in the education world.
Dude, I wish there were more people like you when I was going to college. The school I went to, they were teaching Kali Linux, but it was still in that book was Backtrack.
Oh my God.
And this is not like, this is 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Kali was a thing back then.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. I didn't know that. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Like, how did you, first of all, you mentioned college. Did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to school. So in high school, when I was taking classes, just like my normal gen ed stuff, I really wanted to get into computers. And
Yeah.
the school that I had, they had a career and tech program. And so in that career tech program, they had people that would teach you about how to build computers, right? And then they had
Nice.
another class where you would learn about the networking side. So my sophomore and junior year, I did those two programs. I got a couple certs out of it. And then my senior year, they asked me if I want to do the Security Plus class. I'm like, sure, I'll go ahead and give that a shot, right?
Yeah.
And when I went ahead and did it, it wasn't like what I was thinking it would be. I thought we would go through like a book and like some different stuff in it, but it was my teacher gave me actually like a Backtrack 5 R3 CD, and he had like a little virtual environment set up in VMware, and he said, "This is the book you're going to be using for the class." It was a Backtrack 5 R3 cookbook. And he said, "I want you to go through all the attacks that are in that book, everything that you could put together, and see what works and doesn't work, so I can write this for the labs for next semester." I was like, okay, so I'm a guinea pig in this, but I'll take it because that was stuff I wanted to learn.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Was that your first quote unquote exposure to hacking and security, or did you do any sort of hacking? I'm gonna give an example to if you feel comfortable. All of us have done dumb things as teenagers, and
Yeah.
did you have that in high school when you did stuff for yourself or with your friends, or was that like truly the first time you got into computer security?
That was the first time I got into computer security, and then like it was like my first time exposure as well too to it. And then
Yeah.
like from the stuff that I learned, like I wanted to apply things just for fun. So like I would go ahead and send a bunch of ARP spoof packets out, and like I would take down routers in like the high school I was in just for fun to like get out of tests or quizzes because I
Right.
didn't want to do them.
Naturally.
Yeah. So those were like my little hacks that I did outside, but like my first time exposure was through that class. And if I didn't go through that class, I don't think I would have ever gotten into like the security side of, hacking like we do now, right?
Yeah, it's cool to hear people's perspective. I don't get a lot of people that say, "I went to school and that was the way, I got into security." A lot of people are it's cool to hear that because I wanna show people it doesn't matter how you do it, there is a way into getting into security, whatever it is, a traditional school, learning on your own, and that sort of stuff. Which is cool to hear because a lot of people, at least in the US, I think a lot of schools don't take security that serious.
Mhm.
It's cool that you had a teacher that was, doing that kind of stuff for you or for you
Yeah.
in school.
Yeah, the teacher for me was really awesome, super cool. Was really big into Cisco, but was like, "Hey, here's a lab, try everything out. Let me know it works. If it doesn't work, that's okay." And then I that really was like my niche of like I really want to get into hacking. I really want to get into pen testing, and so like I wanted to figure out how I can learn more. And the
Yeah,
only place that I knew that was teaching about how to use Backtrack at the time, right, was the guys who created it, so Fed Security, right? And
yeah,
I was like, I want to take the OCP, and then at the time that was pen test with Backtrack. It was the class for it, and I was like, okay, let me look at the skills. And I was like, I am not qualified for any of this stuff as a senior in high school. I was like, okay, let me kind of like brush up my knowledge and build my skills more on like actually knowing the operating systems, knowing how services work, right? Understanding how, packets can communicate with each other through client servers and different stuff that was out there. That was like my big thing is like I wanted to get comfortable learning that stuff and then trying to see how can I apply it to the things I was learning, from a security mindset, right? And then bring that perspective out together with the things
yeah.
going on. So,
Wow. You mentioned, so I want to wrap up the school thing. Did you get a degree in computer science, something related when you went to college?
So after I graduated from the high school, I had 35 college credits going to a local community college, and
Got it.
there I went ahead and I got my associates in information technology as a network engineer. And then after that, I went to a university for 2 years and I got my bachelor's in cybersecurity. And then I got a master's certificate at SANS that I did for a little bit. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Very
yeah,
cool. You mentioned OSCP at some point. You said you wanted to get your OSCP. Do you have OSCP, I assume now, right?
yeah, I got it back in 2019.
Okay.
So
Are there any other certificates you have or you want to get maybe in the future?
I got a couple certificates in mind that I want to get through SANS just to get
Yeah.
some like networking, blue teaming stuff on my belt. And then also AWS ones. I want to start learning more about the cloud side of things. That's
Yeah.
really been a big thing for me. Um, Other than that, other certs I could probably think of is like some OffSec certs, like in the OSCP that I've been working on in OSCD. My goal was like I want to be like a Pokemon trainer where it's like you collect all the gym badges, right? I want to get like all the way up to OSCE, like to get the final badge.
It's
So
hard. It's a lot of work, man, to get up
oh
there.
yeah, it's
I know a few people that have done it, and it's a lot of work, especially if you have a full-time job and you have other things in your life too.
it's really hard. I mean, if you don't find a way to do like a specific work-life balance, and the time to study for everything that's there, you're really gonna expand your timeline to just like you're gonna waste a lot of time trying to go through things you're trying to learn, but at the same time also trying to manage the full stuff you got going on. So
Yeah.
if you can't have that balance, then you're gonna really struggle being in this field. It's what I think.
How do you decide what certificates you want to go after next? So what made you want to get OSCP, for example? Was that your first cert?
Mm-mm. OSCP wasn't my first cert. My first cert was actually a CompTIA A plus, and I failed my
Okay.
first exam when I took it.
Okay. How did
Yeah.
was that your first one you took?
hmm Yeah.
Why? How'd you decide that one to be your first one?
So the class that I took in high school, they gave you the fundamentals you needed to learn about how to get that certification. So they would teach you the hardware, the software side of stuff, and then the stuff that you were learning in the concepts would be applied to the first series of that certification you were taking. So CompTIA A plus was broken into two exams that you had to take. There was the hardware and the software. So we went through all of the training material for it. So then when I finished it, we actually had a Pearson testing center at the school. So I went ahead and I took the certification right there to get it. So like I said, the first part on the A plus, I failed it because I didn't study enough. And
Yeah.
then when I retook it again, I studied a little bit more. I got it, and I was like, okay, let me start going through. So when I was a senior in high school, I had my A plus, my Net plus, my Security plus. I had a Microsoft certification as well too. I had an MCSA. And then the reason why I wanted to go for my OCP was that niche. Like I said, back when I was like a senior in high school, just learning about backtrack, I was like, I want to get this,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't feel I was comfortable. And it took me a long time till I got like, I think my full-time career to then finally say that I'm comfortable enough to actually take the OCP. And that was 2018. And I graduated in 2014 out of high school. So it took me about 4 years almost just to finally decide like, hey, I'm ready to take my OCP. Let me go through the PWK. I think I've learned a lot. And I did a lot of practice and studying just to kind of understand some things that I was going to learn, right? And things that I could be able to bring into the course that I could probably skip through, even though I still went through everything. Because
Yeah.
the thing for me is like I want to understand it, then memorize it.
Yeah, I mean, memorizing and understanding things are two different things, right? You can
Right.
memorize things to pass a test, but you're just not going to be able to perform those things, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what a lot of people do, is just to memorize those lines of code, you memorize those commands, memorize those things, the solutions, and then it doesn't come in handy when the solution doesn't match what you memorized.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned that I really want to talk about is you said that you have a heavyish networking background, right? You did all these different networking courses, you did these
Mhm.
classes, and a lot of the viewers that I have that come on this channel, if you are, it's someone like that in the chat, please let me know just so I can, get that number again. But a lot of people come from a network engineering background and they want to become ethical hackers. They want to become SOC analysts. They want to become whatever security, break into security, right?
Mhm.
How did your background in networking help with getting into security, if anything, or did it at all?
So networking really did help in a way that I can understand like how different devices are communicating with each other. How do we set up different operating systems to communicate with the certain architecture, right? And then also, how do we segregate off those systems in those environments, right? So that certain users don't need to touch those things. So, to give an example, right, when I graduated my associates and I had like my networking degree done, the college actually gave me an offer to work at the school to help build up their cybersecurity department. And
Yeah.
I wanted to take that opportunity just so I could learn and build my skills and play with the actual stuff that the college had. And their infrastructure was massive for what they had. And the
Mhm.
things that they had built, how things were segregated, and it was like trying to get through so many different hoops and hurdles, just to make sure things could work. And what happened was that they gave us a rack, they gave us a couple servers, and then some switches and a router and a couple next gen firewalls we had. And they said, here you go, put it to work. See if you can get
Yeah.
online, get everything running. And I was like, okay. So we connected everything, physically. We started, setting up our different networks, for the environments, and then we also started to focus on how can we get the servers to be able to use the full network performance, right? And how can we scale it, in the future so that, the program is good. So we thought about those things to come together. And then the next thing was for the server wise was like, okay, we need you to spin up Active Directory. I was like, I I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I've never used it. So I started learning how to spin up Active Directory. I was there for sometimes like I was almost there overnight just trying to understand like how does this work? How do I get DNS and how do I get DHCP to communicate with each other with this Active Directory environment so that the entire college could use it? And it just took me a few days to get used to those things to try to do the research I needed, find the Microsoft documentation I was looking for, to put everything together to make it work. So
Yeah.
so, going back to like the networking side of things for me to be a pen tester, it's definitely super useful because like the stuff I go through now, like in a day-to-day job as a pen tester, I get to actually try to understand how their network is set up. How are things actually running? And sometimes for some people, right, we go to with like system administrators, network engineers, right? They don't know what's actually running sometimes. There's like a certain
Yeah.
service that's not supposed to be open. It's open. I can access it publicly. Then they start to freak out. It's like, oh crap, how do we shut that down? How do we lock it down? I'm like, well, just disable the service or just have a firewall rule to cut it off, right? If you don't need that service up, you don't need anybody to go to it, then it shouldn't be able to have access to the internet.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I think what you mentioned about your experience personally is you you mentioned something about you had to learn Active Directory. You have to learn how to how network works, and I think those are the fundamentals you really need to understand with pen testing. At least, I mean, depending on what kind of pen testing. If you're doing web pen testing, maybe not so much, but if you're doing more than just that, you're gonna have to understand those things, right? You have to understand how these fundamentals work. The other question that I want to ask on follow up was I think you're the perfect fit for this because I get this
Mm.
so much. What do I do next? I've gotten my CompTIA, I've gotten my, all these networking certificates. Where do I go next?
It really depends. I mean, the thing for me is like I tell every student is, you don't have to be a pen tester in cybersecurity, right? You could be a
Yeah.
blue teamer, you could be a SOC analyst, right? You could be an incident responder. If you don't want to get in the cyber side, you just want to be in the IT side, do that too. Like no one's pushing you to go down into one way, right? Everybody has their own niche of a path that they want to get into. For me, it was I started in help desk, and then I started as a system administrator, and then I went from being a system administrator to a SOC analyst, working in endpoint security stuff, and then moving from there, I became a pen tester. And that from the time that it took me to get to that point was almost about 6 to 7 years. But
Wow.
I don't look back at, all the stuff that I've learned. I am truly grateful for the opportunities that I had because the opportunities that I've gotten, from the skills that I've learned on how does help desk work, how do people actually administrate, their systems and environments that they have, and then being a SOC analyst, right? What attacks are we looking for? What APTs are we trying to identify? What stuff do we need to block so that we make sure users don't touch those things, right? I was
Yeah.
able to apply all that stuff that I learned into the things that I'm going through now as a pen tester, right? Because for me, those are challenges that I want to overcome. And that way, then I can help those other three teams that I'm assessing learn better from these things that I'm seeing now.
Yeah. Um, I think there's a lot of different. What you said, you can become a SOC analyst, you can become a blue teamer, you can become a red teamer. I think that all depends on exactly what you said. Depends on what your end goal is of who what you want to do in the world, and then taking up that path, and then finding the right certificates, finding the right resources. Um, the other on the other thing that a lot of people ask about, getting into hacking, especially, is coding. Do you think knowing how to write code is a requirement, or do you need to know how to code in order to become successful with hacking, whether on the blue team, on the red team, security in general?
I think coding is definitely a skill that I think should be added to be a pen tester for
Yeah.
sure. And then there's so many different languages to learn, but at the same time, if you have a strong skill or background in like, one programming language, you're going to fit on that team that you're going to be on doing pen testing or hacking pretty well. But having a core fundamental of, how does programming work, right? How does this, how do you write your first script, right? And then how do you understand the functions that are being built into it? A lot of that stuff kind of applies into other different languages. It's definitely a little bit different, right? I mean, with some of the ways that these programming languages, build for their stuff that they have. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not getting the words I want right for this point, but the point I'm trying to make is that yeah, definitely having programming as a skill is definitely going to be helpful for you, being a pen tester or hacker in this field for sure.
Yeah. With again, objective, what it is, like, if you're on the blue team side, the way you write code is going to be way different than the way you do on a red team side, right?
Yeah,
Um, at a fundamental, you're doing the same tasks, maybe similar tasks, but differently. Uh, but one of the things that I think with the interviews I've done, I've learned a lot is you don't need to become a full stack developer,
hmm,
but you need to know how to automate your life so you can be more efficient, or maybe know how to, automate this tedious tasks. Or if you're doing, if you get access to source code, kind of being able to understand it. And that's where knowing how to, knowing how to code becomes really, really important. When you have source code access, if you can't understand what it's doing, you can't leverage it to, escalate your privilege or whatever that is.
no, I agree with that.
Um, yeah, it's one of the things that I struggle with to explain to people is like, you don't need to go and, like, become a full stack developer, but it
No,
doesn't hurt.
I mean, I the only reason why I say to have like at least like a good strong skill in like one programming language is just for you to have on the team, right? That you're going to be
Yeah.
with because you don't have to know all the different languages, right? I feel like that's impossible to try to write, so many different things for a blue teamer or for, someone that's going to be in red, right? Or being a pen tester. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So,
For sure. I agree. Let's talk about CTFs. I see in the chat a lot of people are mentioning let's see, there's this one that says your OSCP like boxes have helped them during their OSCP.
Mhm.
I saw a bunch of people talking about, how you have created these boxes. I want to talk about that, but before we talk about that, I want to get your take on CTFs in general.
Yeah,
Do you think CTFs are a good place for people who want to get into this field?
absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because the only reason why I got a job in the field I am in today is because I got recruited at a cyber competition at doing a
Wow.
CTF.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
That's incredible. Do you think the skills you get from a CTF are transferable into what you do?
I say so. I mean, not all the skills that I've learned or from like some of the CTFE challenges, right, that are out there, I'm going
Yeah.
to fully use to apply, but I still get to learn something out of, the creator that's made them, right? Or it's a thing that I maybe need to look for in the future in the real world environment and try to apply that into the real world skills that I have now. And that's what I've always looked with CTFs. Like I still have a whole collection of all the past CTFs I did with all the challenges and write-ups that I wrote on them. Because I like to go back to them sometimes and think, hey, this type of technique that I've used before, I don't have it engraved in my head, but I have it written down that I can walk through in this, right? Or just to re-practice some things that I need to learn when I'm going up, onto something for a real world assignment.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing with CTFs is that it gives you, I think my viewers are tired of me saying this, but it gives you exposure to skills that you don't know if you are passionate about. So if you go to a CTF, because there's so many different things you get to try on. If you're new, especially, you get to go, oh, I like this aspect of security. I like doing
Yeah.
binary exploitation. I like doing web. I like doing Android. Whatever that is. I think it's a good place to see what are you passionate about, and that could become your field.
Yeah, no, I agree
Yeah.
with that. I mean, I also look at like cyber competitions and CTFs as, like you said, as a way for you to find your niche, right? If you want to get into web app pen testing or reverse engineering, right? There's web app
Mhm.
challenges out there. There's some reverse engineering challenges you can do. Just to give yourself an idea of like what do you like and what do you don't like, to get yourself into cybersecurity if the field is for you. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. What got you into creating boxes for people?
I actually don't have any boxes created.
So what are people saying? Someone said in the chat you have OSCP like boxes. Where did that come from?
So when this is going to be a little bit of a long story, but
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep it short. Um, so when I was in college, I didn't like what was being posted on like certain like subreddits, like rnets, or sorry, like the moderation that was there from like rnetsec, right, and rnetsec students, where people would post like some really cool stuff, and then next minute moderators be like, nope, this is like self-posting, this is for them,
I
like
have
we're gonna
been banned
remove
for
it.
that reason. I've been
Right.
banned for that.
Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why ban someone who's trying to share knowledge? Like, I think that's
Yeah.
great. So there's a guy that was part of the university that I was at, and he made a group called NetSec Focus, and I wanted to be a part of it. It was only going to be like a CSSP study group, but then it turned out more to being a place where everybody could learn, about different parts of cybersecurity. And I was like, this is great. So we started on Slack, and then we moved to Mattermost. We had our whole entire chat comms there, and then what started out was that there was a guy on there called Cola, and he would go ahead and go through a list that Apache made, and it was just about like these vulnerable boxes on VulnHub. And so he would pick a day on a time and just go ahead and stream and show him like breaking into the boxes, and I would follow along with what he did. And then over the time happened, right, as some people left NetSec Focus and some group, I went over and I actually took over the NetSec Focus list, and I turned it into, because we had a list that was just like boxes for fun that we did, and then we
Yeah.
also had a list for boxes that were like OSCP, like like the PWK labs. And so we would try to go through those boxes just to prepare for the PWK OCP. And then when the guys got their OCP, some of them didn't want to maintain the list, and I said, let me take it over. I want to show this and share this to the world. I think this is great. And then the list blew up, from being the simple list of just boxes just to hack for fun to now people are using it in real time to prepare for the, taking the PWK course, and going through their OCP. And so there's boxes on there from VulnHub, Hack the Box that's there. I wanted to do some stuff with Try Hack Me, but at the time I got my OCP, I was like, I don't have any time for this. And some people are making their own Try Hack Me list, but I feel like the best exposure is just going through a box and just challenging yourself. Um, so the so there's a couple ones there. So if you go to vulnerable machines at the bottom, in the guide that you're looking at. Yep, just click that. So there's the list that I made. So there's a Proving Grounds list, there's a Vault Hub list, there's a Hack the Box list, and there's just boxes that people can go through that I thought could help prepare people for their PWK and to take the OCP. And there's some boxes, of course, that are a little bit more challenging, but
Right.
you still get to learn some things out of them. And I think that's, what's really cool about this list is that, they're boxes that people can learn from, right? And try to get an understanding if it's, a realistic situation or just even in a CTF environment. You're still going to learn something in the end.
This is a very I've briefly looked at this earlier before you got on, but I never got to go through the books and the boxes. This is an incredible like list, dude, to have all of these. And if people that are watching this, I feel like this is more than enough that you need to practice because you have almost everything from Linux boxes to Windows boxes, and you've covered almost every platform, every book, I feel like every training or
Yep.
every course in here. That's very, very good, man. Very, very cool. Are you still maintaining this website?
Yep.
How often do you guys post on here?
I haven't posted anything new. The last thing I did was the home lab guide. I have a couple articles that I want to share, but I just haven't had the time yet since I've been busy with other things. A lot of my articles that I used to blog and post about used to be on the OffSec blog, but since I now no longer work at Offensive Security, I'm gonna start probably blogging back on NetSec Focus for the time being.
Nice.
For things I got.
So I have to ask, you mentioned OffSec. How did you get linked with them? How did your journey as a community manager for OffSec, kick off?
Yeah, I could talk about that. So when I passed my OCP and when I was making this guide, I wanted to make this guide just to help people prepare and just show people like, hey, you don't have to like spend so much money on all these other resources or all these other classes that are out there. You can literally find a bunch of free resources to help you learn more about the content that can help you prepare when you get ready for the PWK course, right? And to get your OCP. And so that's what the list is, or so that's what the guide's about. It's these free resources that I use for a long time to help challenge myself, to help learn more about, some of the different tools, the different techniques that are out there. And I basically
Mhm.
just went off of the PWK syllabus to kind of, do a set alignment for everything. So as I was putting this guide together, I wanted to make sure I got this vetted by offensive security. And so in NetSec Focus, Got Milk was actually there. And so I was like, hey, I have this guide. I think it's really good. I want to share this with the community, but before I like overstep my boundaries, I want to make sure, offensive security is okay with me posting about it. So they went through and they vetted it. They really liked it. And then 2 days later, I got a message from Got Milk asking me if I wanted to work at offensive security. And like my high school like internal side kid me was like, holy crap. Like I get to work with the pros.
Yeah.
I want to work with like the elders that I've known for so long and I've looked up to. Like I used to read Dukey's guides, Ryu's guides on things that they would go through, different attacks that they would do.
Yeah.
Mutz when he did his entire he had an HP buffer overflow he found a long time ago that was super cool. And I was like, I get to learn from these guys. Like, I want to find a way to get to be able to work with them. How can I do that? So I had a couple meetings with Elwood, or as everybody probably knows online is Jim O'Gorman.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who actually is the director for maintaining Kali Linux and content development for OffSec. And he's asked
Huh.
me, said, hey, we want you to be a community manager. We think you could do a really good job building community, and being around. And I was like, yeah, I'm all for it. And at the time I was also getting my like feet wet being a pen tester in real life and like going through some real world stuff. And I said, can I be able to do something part-time while I get my full-time stuff, situated? He's like, we can work something out to do that. So I worked at, so I took the job being the community manager for offensive security. And my goal was basically to kind of break down the walls and create a bridge so that students and OffSec employees could be able to communicate with each other one-on-one, because we used to do that a long time ago in the IRC chat, but a lot of employees at OffSec couldn't be able, well, I wouldn't say a lot of employees. I'd say certain people in the that were OffSec employees had to manage and prioritize their tasks for other things. So the
Yeah.
IRC started to slowly die away. And in the time when it died away, that communication, that bridge that was there was lost. And so I wanted to find a way to bring it back, build it up, and I brought on a buddy of mine called by the name of Falcon Spy, and he helped us build the OffSec community on Discord, and it's been going great. just seeing the people that are there, communicating, seeing the OffSec employees come back, to talk about some projects they're doing, certain things that they're seeing with the course that they wrote. Like that's the bridge that I wanted to build, and I'm happy to see it grow to be where it is right now.
Yeah, very cool, man. That's awesome. I think there is a need for more people like you in the community to see a gap in a certain part of the community or a group of people that could be looped into that community and being the change instead of just talking about it. I really respect that. That's very, very cool. Thanks for sharing that, man. Um, let's talk about tooling. I gotta ask, what are some of your favorite tools you use? Do you know what is in your tool belt? If you use 5 tools, you get stuck on an island, you can bring 5 tools with you. You get stuck on a pentest, you gotta bring 5 tools with you. What are you bringing, dude?
I'm bringing in-packet scripts for sure, if that counts. I mean, I know
Okay.
there's like a bunch of scripts, right? But if we want to put in a tool, right?
Okay.
In-packet scripts for sure. Crack map exec for Windows side. If I'm gonna do some web app like directory searching, I'm using dir search for sure.
Oh, your dirt
Um,
search, you're loyal. Okay. I
I
respect
I
that.
like I really like dir search a lot. I
Yeah.
out of using GoBuster, WFuzz,
They don't feel the
FUF.
same.
They
They don't
don't.
feel
No,
the
no,
same,
no.
man. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I go back and forth in FF and dire search. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So dir search is my go-to. Um, let's see, that's 3, right? I put
3,
out
yeah.
so 2 more. If I'm gonna do more Windows stuff, PowerShell on Linux is really, really cool. And if you
Okay.
get to if you want to directly interact with like Active Directory stuff or pull like Kerberos tickets or just get a shell through a PS session, PowerShell for Linux is like the bridge to get into Windows systems with it. So
Okay.
that's my 4th. And then number 5. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Hashcat on password cracking. That'll
That's a good
probably be
one. Yeah, I think
that
you gotta
that'll
need that. Yeah.
yeah, that'll be my other one. Like I learned a lot from Mog on actually like cracking hashes and then like making custom rule sets. So
Okay.
that's one I definitely want to go. If I gotta break a hash or I gotta crack a password, like Hashcat's the one I'm firing up first.
No love for Wireshark, IDA Pro. I see IPSec, no Burp Suite.
I don't do much web app pen testing, to be honest. So like yeah, I totally would use Burp Suite, but I don't really touch web apps much. Most of my stuff I focus on is like network pen testing, Active Directory stuff. Wireshark TCP dump. Yeah, I could use that to look at traffic, but if I need a tool to break something, and like or find things out there, I'm gonna go straight for it.
All right, for sure. Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned DIR search. As far as recon goes, so this is live recon. I have to ask you,
Mhm.
what does recon mean to you? And how do you perform recon for your targets?
It really depends. Like it depends on the target I'm looking at, right? And then also what is specifically am I trying to look for, that I think would be useful in the information that I'm trying to grab, right? If it's like, a client that's giving me an IP address, right? I want to start figuring out, what that IP address is tied to. So I'm going to go through all the different, search databases that are out there, right? With Shodan, with Census, right? Figure out, if they have any collection or any data about that system, what's running for services, right? Maybe
Yeah,
fire up mmap if I get the approval to like, do some actual enumeration on it, just to do some more recon to it. Websites, right? I love using the Wayback Machine just to find like
absolutely. Yeah,
old historical archives of things. So like I will find like some good useful information from like past websites that people leave, and looking for like files that they have on there too, doing some Google dorking. That's another big thing. So
the Google Docking is
um,
so underrated.
mhm. So
It
I
is
actually
underrated. Yeah.
I got a list. So I posted so I have 2 templates. I have a Joplin pen test template and I have a OSINT notebook. They're both on my GitHub page. Anybody can access them, but they're basically my notes of what I use for like pen test, on real pen test, or I use in the PWK labs. But for OSINT wise, like I would use those on different cases that I was given permission to, go ahead and look at and review. And so I would use a lot of the data and information that's in there to go ahead and try to find things, that's tied to a company, tied to a person,
Yeah.
or tied to a vehicle or a specific case. So
Are there any like OSINT tools that you use regularly or enjoy using? Whether it's for, discovering people, whether it's for subdomain discovery, getting ASN information, you know, email information, whatever that is. Are there any ones that you use regularly or you think people should use?
The Harvester is a good one I use for
Yeah.
emails. That was a big one for me using a lot. I started using a tool called Katana.
Okay.
And the reason why I started using that is because they have a pre-populated ICS SCADA Recon module built
Okay.
in. So I've been starting to look at more ICS SCADA stuff just for fun that I could try
Yeah.
to find. And Katana's been like really good at just finding like all the different like ICS SCADA devices that are out there. And like I could tune the templates that are there for it. I know there's other people that like to use like nuclei. I haven't been able to have the time to play with it yet, but I've seen some cool stuff that people have done with like, automating, trying to find default credentials on specific sites and services that are out there. Um, but yeah, those are my two tools that I've been using recently.
Nuclei is a good one. Um, it's hit or miss, I think,
Yeah.
on what you can do with it. But they've done some cool stuff with it, just to give it credit as well. Cool. I gotta ask you this question before we go to our. I usually wrap up the show with some mental health question. I think super personal, but I just think people wanna. It's the goal is to humanize people and show how you deal with life and that kind of stuff. But before I ask you that, just the guy asked a really good question that I think would be cool to ask you is, how confident is he taking the OSCP from first try if you were to take it right now?
I'd be very confident. I mean, I
Yeah.
passed on my first try. I'll probably
Nice.
try to do it again. So, and Active Directory has really been a straightforward shot for me for things that I've been looking at. So,
Yeah.
I'm,
Okay. Yeah. I saw that question. I was like, I gotta ask you that. Going from someone who's taken it. Um, Let me ask you one more question that just came in about just add to some of the questions. What's your opinion on CCNA when trying to get into cybersecurity? Do you have an opinion on it?
so I don't have. Oh, wait, CCNA. I was thinking CSSP for a second. I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. CCNA. I have. I had
Yeah.
my routing and switching as a network engineer when I started, and then I also got my CCNA cyber ops. I think Cisco has done an interesting change in how their exam formats work. So now I think you have to do like a written portion for the CCNA and then do like a multiple choice. I think that's just a little excessive, just adding extra stuff to it. What I like
Yeah.
to see is more exams start to be a little bit more practical so that people can actually get like the actual hands-on skills instead of trying to memorize, a specific multiple choice question that they find from some like online test bank or some dump that's out there.
Yeah.
So, but CCNA is good to have. I'd say that for sure if you want to get in the networking side for to add to it. But the other thing too that I also want to mention is that a lot of environments that I've seen, and this can change for anybody, is like I'm starting to see a decrease in like Cisco devices being out there. So, and CCNA only ties to just being for Cisco devices. They don't really expand on all the other different network security appliances that are out there, or network tools or network devices that are out there, that people use. So, like Ubiquiti is like a popular one that I'm starting to
Yeah.
see people are using, right? Fortinet's got that big vulnerability. I think that Horizon 3 just found recently that I saw that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. So, things like that. I think CCNA could probably expand on more, but if you're just looking at like specific Cisco stuff, then yeah, go for CCNA.
Is there a certificate that you recommend for someone that just wants to learn networking and not just Cisco focused?
I'd say Network
Like
Plus.
Network Plus.
Network
Okay.
Plus definitely goes over a variety of different products, I'd say, but also it does focus on like the core fundamentals, of you know IP addresses, subnets, CDR stuff, right? Host names, and then also the different antennas for wireless gear that are out there. So that's a certification I would definitely recommend to go into for if you want to learn just about everything in networking, you can.
Cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, I've I can't explain how many times people ask about like networking questions of like I don't have a networking background at all. So people ask like, oh, I'm a network engineer. I want to get into networking. What's the first thing to get? I
Hmm.
know they're specific to certain vendors, but I've never got the chance to actually ask people. And it's one of the most common things I get asked. There's so many network engineers that want to get into cybersecurity. So I really appreciate your insight on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Any way I could be able to help out on that.
Let's talk about mental health a little bit.
Okay.
Um, How do you first of all, let's just kick off with a daily routine. Do you have some sort of a morning routine, a daily routine, to keep yourself balanced, or are you just, a free spirit, you just wake up and do your own thing?
I just wake up, I do my own thing. I'm go with the flow, really.
Yeah.
But I try to have like certain things. added to my daily schedule. Like I like to go work out at the gym. I will try to go
Yeah.
run, or I'll have some outdoor activities that I like to do. Like I like to hike, I like to play lacrosse, so those are things like I try to do those things just to, give my mind a break from looking at the computer screen, 24/7, right?
Yeah.
So
What about like how do you balance life? How is the do you how do you work? I want to ask you about like work-life balance. Do you believe in work-life balance? First of all, like you work certain hours and you don't work certain hours, or how do you balance life? I'll give an example of like people that are they have families, they work, they do research, they have side hustles that they do. Do you have a balance in between those? How do you deal with all that?
for me now, I have some balance between things. I got some things that have
Yeah,
been thrown at me, that I'm just trying to figure out how to adapt and cope with, um, but that really is just about what you want to prioritize the most, right? For me, it's like
yeah,
family's number one. Like if something happens, I'm gonna go help them out, or I'm gonna figure out what they need, and I'll try to do that to be around for them, And fortunately, the job that I have now, being a pen tester, it's super flexible where I can work the hours I need, go help out my family, come back here, do a couple more hours, and then enjoy the rest of my day after I clock out of my shift to go, do my activities that I want to do. So I think prioritizing, the things that you want to do as a person, right? Or things that you want to be able to focus on are the big things. And then figure out how much time you want to put into those things that are out there, right? For your
yeah,
activities that you have or things that you want to get done as well too to accomplish, right? Because otherwise, if you don't really prioritize that, or you set a schedule to the things you want to put the time and effort in, you're going to be pushing those things like back and back and back, because
yeah,
another task is always going to come up and it's never going to end.
yeah. Do you so you do you just I want to drill on the life balancing. How do you go about when you have busy schedules and busy days to make sure you still dedicate time for yourself? Do you have some sort of a thing that you remind yourself to take time for yourself and not get burnt out?
Mm, that's a really good question. I really have never thought of this. For me, like hacking's a hobby.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy it for fun. If there's time that I need, I'll set like maybe an hour or two out of my day to like maybe play some video games.
Mhm.
But like the fun stuff that I do, like I said, go hiking, play lacrosse, go work out. I set that time of what I want to do in my schedule. And if I don't have the ability to go out, right, or to play, right, I'll find something else to do just to keep my mind occupied from other stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the best way I could try to describe it. It's kind of a tough question to answer
It
for
is.
me.
Let me ask it differently. Do you deal with a lot of burnouts? Do you feel like that, you get burnt out every few months or every few weeks or whatever? Or if you do, how do you deal with it?
Oh yeah, I've had burnouts. I've had
Yeah.
burnouts lots. I mean, for me, like when I got my pen testing gig, I really went down, and I think like a really bad path of like all I would do was just eat, sleep, hack, repeat. I didn't have like any activities outside. I didn't really exercise as much, and it really took a toll on me, not just physically, but even mentally too,
Mhm.
where I just continued to do this, and like my family would even notice it as well. And they were like, "You're always on the computer. You're always doing this. Like, when are you ever going to spend time with us? Like, I don't understand." And those things like really got to me. It's like you're right. I really do spend so much time on the computer when there's so many other things to do outside of life.
Yeah.
And that's when like the shock really took me. It's like, okay, I really need to start doing more things outside, or try to pick up some like old hobbies that I had that I really used to enjoy for fun. So like lacrosse, like I keep saying, lacrosse and hiking are like hobbies I've had since high school. Those are things I re-picked back up, and it really has bring me a lot of like happiness, I would say,
Yeah.
and like also like motivation to try to do more things and like to challenge yourself on all these other activities instead of just trying to commit to something where you have to break into something or try to test something or troubleshoot at something. um, that's my way of getting out of my burnout, right? It's just trying to step away from the computer, do those activities that I have, or just find something new that I can try to do just to give myself, like I said, a break from the screen when I can.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. One, like being able to recognize getting to your burnouts is really hard. It's usually if it took me a very long time to know. Um, that to recognize that I'm getting there before I actually get there. There's a difference between because once you realize that you get into a point that the things that you enjoy are becoming a chore and just taking a break from it versus you're already at the end and then nothing is enjoyable, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just get like super slumped down and just like you feel down about everything that you're doing. It sucks. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. It's a really tough one. I want to, the thing that the reason why I asked this question is with people that are going through wanting to get your OSCPs and to hit that block and they just feel like it's the end of it. It's okay to feel like you need a break. It's okay to not want to do those things for a bit and come and picking it back up. The last thing I want to ask you, it's kind of related, still in the mental health part. It's about imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
At your level, you have done some amazing work. You have put out some really great resources for people. Um, do you still with imposter syndrome?
No, and the reason why I don't think I have any deal with it is because I try not to compare myself to others, and I try not to put myself into a competitive spot against people I look up to, like you, Ben, IPSec, um, people I used to look up like at Mutz, at OffSec, Ryu, Iggy, um, Dookie, Sickness, Morden. Like those are the guys. Like those guys have like put years into work of what they've done, the things that they have shared, and like for me, it's like I can't compare myself to the amount of time and effort they put into things that they did. For me, it's I want to find ways where I can help others become successful, and I want to share, you know, the pot right in the share for everybody to have, a great reward in the end of it. There's always people that are going to be better than you, but you're always going to be better than someone else as well too. In the end of it, I don't really like that motto as much. I more just like want to help people and give back where I can. And if someone's better than me, that's great. I'm happy for them. What I focus on is trying to accomplish things that I have and goals that I want to do to make myself better in the long run. So I think we lost Ben. I can see the chat, but I don't have the ability to type. This might be like the Nahamsec stream takeover right now. I swear to God, I did not hack him. Ugh. Maybe you switch to a live recon. That's a good point. I don't think I did. There you are.
Sometimes it does this, and it's incredible how the panic that goes into my mind trying to fix it is incredible. And I have it on my phone, so I can hear you talk about the homesick takeaway. I'm like, I'm in the backstage. I just think my wife.
All good, man.
Oh my god. I'm glad it happened towards the end. I'm gonna ask you this question one more time about
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. You said that you don't feel like you deal with it because, and I think I like it was a cliffhanger for me because it was the best part of the answer.
I'll keep it short because I know you got live recon. So for me, like imposter syndrome is like, to me, it doesn't affect me because I don't try to compare myself to others, or I try to think I'm going to be competing against one another, right?
Yeah,
Like you are great at web app pen testing. I've seen the bug bounty stuff you've done. I am never going to be a web app pen tester. I hate web app pen testing personally.
yeah,
But that's okay because you have that skill, you have that knowledge, and you're sharing that with others. That's what makes that for me is important because I want to see not just you but other people that are in the infosec community share things that they're seeing, things that they're going through, right? And then we can find ways to talk about them and share those events together. That's
yeah,
what I look at it. There's this motto, like I said, that I heard. It's like, um, there's always going to be someone's better than you, but you're always going to be better than someone else. Like I don't care if you're better or not. What matters to me is, are you being successful right now? Are you learning something? Are you sharing something? And if
yeah.
so, what are you sharing? Because I like to learn about it. If it interests me, okay. If it doesn't, that's okay. It's still something cool that you're doing. And I love to see that, as you go ahead and grow that forward.
I think it's a really good point. Competing or comparing yourself with others is a really hard one.
Hmm.
I struggled with it in a very hard way in bug bounty, especially with bug bounties, because it is such a competitive field,
Oh, yeah.
and it's so everyone's putting out cool research, and you think you know everything, and then you realize you don't know anything at all,
Hmm.
actually. But then what you said, you realize like you're learning things the way you want. You're gonna learn the things that you like to learn, and it's okay. My thing was to becoming okay with saying I don't know these things.
Hmm.
You know, if I would have done your interview 3 years ago, the stuff that you mentioned in some of the part of the interview, I wouldn't have not understood it. But because of the stream, I learned, I went on the try hack, made it hack the box. I learned some of this stuff so I could understand and talk to other people and at least say, I may not understand the things that you're telling me in depth, but at least I've done the part to learn a little bit so I can contribute to that conversation and say it's okay that I don't know these things because it's not of interest to me or it's not something that I'm going to do in my career.
Right. And that's okay. Everybody has their own path. Everybody's going to
Yeah.
learn things differently, right? And on top of it, people are going to go through different platforms, different books, different tools, different resources. That is 100% okay.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, for some people in this field, I think we really need to start pushing that and start accepting it more instead of trying to make it like it's a race or, a
Yeah.
competition all the time. It's great to have like games and stuff like, going into like hack the box and going through battlegrounds, right? Or, doing King
Yeah.
of the Hill on Try Hack Me. Like those things are fun and that's how it should be. It shouldn't be like, oh, I got first place. Here's my trophy. I'm better than you. No, that's
Yeah.
not how it is. Like, congrats on getting the trophy, but you're not better than anyone else that's in the same field that we're in now.
Yeah.
That's that's
Absolutely.
that's the way I see it.
I think having a competitive, and this is speaking for me at least, having a competitive edge in a healthy way is good to push yourself to do better. But as long as you're drawing inspiration from others and not putting yourself down because you're not at that level,
Hmm. I agree
because
with
that
that.
is right. Because you can use that
Yeah.
inspiration to want to get to that person. I looked up to a lot of people in the community when I first got into Bug Bounty that I wanted to do the things that they were doing, and when I got to achieve those things, it helped. I understood how they did them, and it was the inspiration that I want to be as good as these people. And in some cases they're still better than me, but those things that I want to learn, I draw inspiration from them to do it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And that's how really I think a lot of people should be. Having that type of mindset, can help that person get better mentally, I feel like, or push
Yeah.
them into a drive that they can have instead of, looking up to someone saying, "Oh, he's better than me. I'm never going to get to that level."
It's
That's
very
his level.
unhealthy.
That's not your level.
Yeah. And it
So,
takes it takes a long time to get there. One of the biggest things that I tell people is you don't know what people have gone through to get to the point they're at. You don't know how long they've been doing that. It's not like you may have heard about him like 6 months ago, but you don't know what they were doing 6, 7, 8 years ago, right?
yeah.
Those were the times that you didn't know they were nobody or they were not included in, they were not involved in the community. They weren't putting out things. They were learning and learning and learning. You don't get to hear those things. Now you're learning about their success story and it's never overnight.
Yeah, I mean, my whole success story, like for getting my OCP, is it's on the NetSec Focus Guide. But like, it took me 8 years to be a pen tester. It took
Yeah.
me 4 years of education to get a job in cyber, and I applied to so many different jobs that I was lucky enough to get picked up at a cyber competition. That was the
Yeah.
only way I got a job. That was my opportunity. But going back, seeing how other people have gone in this field, some people are a high school dropout, full-time pen tester, working as an
Yeah.
OffSec manager, right? Or there's some people that are still in school, but they're doing bug bounties and they're getting, big prizes. Like, great. That's cool you
For
found
sure.
something like that. Don't let that stop you. But at the same time, don't let, for the person who's looking at it, don't let that affect you in any way. Use that as
Yeah.
something to learn from and go for.
I agree, man. That's a very good way to put it. One last thing I want to ask you: word of advice for anybody watching this, anyone that wants to get into cybersecurity, people that look up to you, that are inspired by you, they want to become, become get on your level, become, do the things that you have done. What's what's your advice?
Take the time to understand things. Don't go through memorizing every little thing that you possibly know. You can't memorize everything. It's impossible, especially in our field, but just in general of learning. That's the big thing. And on top of it, take your time to understand things. Don't rush through things. You're not, in a marathon, right? A runner, right, has to take their time to pace themselves to get to
Yeah.
that end of the finish line. If they went ahead and they sprinted, the first 2 miles, right, they're going to be gassed out. They're not drinking enough or having other things, to be able to make themselves better. So to go to the cybersecurity perspective, take your time about learning the things that are out there. If you want to jump to be a pen tester, that's great. But if you don't take the time to learn the system administration, how the operating systems work, how do systems communicate with each other, you're going to have a rough time being a pen tester in the real world, trying to understand all these different environments that you're going to have to be assessing, or the different web apps that are out there. Those things are, it takes time to really build that as a skill. I wish
Yeah.
cybersecurity was easy. I really do. But if you put the time, the effort, and take the time to understand things, and have a niche of what you want to do, then you're going to be successful in this field with those things that I've said.
Very well said, man. Thank you so much for doing this. For people that want to, get in touch with you, they want to, send you questions, or they want to read your content, where can they find these things?
Absolutely. So I'm always on Twitter. I'm also on Mastodon. I haven't posted on there in a while yet. Um, I'm also on Discord as well too. You can find me on my Discord handle that I have. Reach out to me anytime. I'm always around wherever I can to be able to help out. Stuff that I usually like to share most of the time will be on NetSec Focus now for when I do any blogs. That's the site that you see there on Twitter. And then I also have a GitHub page. So any cool projects, tools that I'm posting, updates for stuff, you'll see that there as well too. But other than that, that's really it. That's how you can find me and how you can see the stuff I got working on. So if you got any
Cool.
questions, feel free to hit me up.
Make sure to go and follow him. Again, man, thank you so much for doing this. This was a very cool interview. Thank you for sharing all the stuff that you shared today. And I'm looking forward to see what you do in the future, and I'm excited to see it.
Thanks, Ben. Really means a lot to be on the show, and also for you inviting me here to be able to share some knowledge. I really hope that the audience was able to learn some things today, and hopefully maybe you and I can be able to collaborate or talk soon in the future, right? And
I
I
hope
can't
so.
wait. I can't wait to see what projects you got coming on this year. So
Hopefully I get to see you at DEF CON this year. If you do go out there, hopefully we get to meet up in person and grab a drink. And if not, hopefully at some other conference we get to run into each other and actually meet in person and do this in person, hopefully.
yeah, absolutely. I'd totally love to do that.
Cool, man. It was nice meeting you. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Take care.
See ya.